This session is about the next evolution of finite automata, that is push-down automata. An overview of what needs to be understood before getting into this topic. Finite automata, its definition, its design and the recognition, followed by the different types of finite automata that are available, non-deterministic, deterministic and epsilon NFA, all its equivalents to be understood by means of interconversions. Then the mathematical modeling of finite automata, which is regular expression to be understood. Since regular expression and finite automata are said to accept the same class of languages, interconversion between regular expression and finite automata has to be understood. In order to ensure different operations that could be performed on regular languages, closure properties has to be understood in a clear way. And the most important concept, pumping lemma, which is a standard way to prove that not all kind of languages can be accepted by finite automata, and hence is the requirement for this session. Let us understand the limitation of finite automata. The limitation is that finite automata is a finite control and it doesn't have any memory element associated with that. Because of this, some of the languages where the necessity to understand the history, let's say if L is equal to a power n b power n, the number of a's that has been crossed till now has to be understood to get properly mapped with b's. So this history is not at all being stored using finite automata, and hence these class of languages cannot be represented using finite automata. Let's understand logic of this push-down automata in a detailed way, and then we'll move on to technical concept. In this pandemic, children are at home and they are quarreling with each other, fighting for so many things. Assume a mother, in order to convince the kids, who are very young in their age, she give a box of these marbles of different colors and ask the kids to arrange it according to the color. The work that is given to the kids is to arrange the marbles based on its color and to check whether the number of green colored balls is equal to number of blue colored balls. How does the kid do this? If at all they are very small and they didn't know the counting. Whenever any green colored ball that comes in, you can keep it separately and like this. I'm having 6 green colored box, I'm going to arrange it. Whenever a blue color ball comes in, I can just map it with the green color ball. So when the first blue color ball comes in, I can remove green color, which means I have one blue color for one green color. When second blue color comes, second can go off, and this procedure can continue. If at all you cancel out all the green colored balls for all blue colored balls that you have, you can say that the number of green colored balls is equivalent to number of blue colored balls. That's the concept which we normally adopt, and the same you could have seen in so many films that uneducated people used to do like this. Green colored balls can be drawn like this. When one ball comes, you can put a one, second ball, third ball, fourth ball, fifth ball, sixth ball. When the blue color ball comes, you can cancel out. So if everything gets cancelled out, then we say both are equal, otherwise unequal. This concept of computing the equivalents is being taken for the design of push-down automata, since this adheres to the concept of stack. With that simple understanding, let's move on to understand why is it required in computing environment. You know, the programming languages has evolved like this. If you look at this diagram, you could see a programming language which when executed can have 3 types of statements. One is sequence, second is selection, third one is loop. Sequence, what is the use of it? When it enters into the job, The first statement gets executed followed by second, third, and it moves on. Selection based on the result of a condition, either it can branch towards left or branch towards right. Iteration will be there if a certain set of statements need to be executed more than once. And hence, these are the elements that can be the part of any program that is being executed by the operating system. So, this kind of programming languages were there early, and these we call it as structured programming. The limitation or the drawback is that when you go for a very large program, let's say even a small program NCR, if you want to compute, the formula remains like n factorial divided by r factorial into n minus r factorial, where the computation of factorial becomes common, only the difference with the parameters that are being passed. Here it is n, here it is r, here it is n minus r. And hence, in order to enforce the reusability, that is, the code to perform computation can be reused just by changing the parameters, we went for modular programming. The concept of modular programming is to divide the entire program or a single program into its constituent units, right? So this is module 1, otherwise we call it as function 1 or procedure 1, and this is module 2, procedure 2 or function 2. But for the operating system, we should instruct the starting point. Like in finite automata, we always have a start state. Any program should have a starting state to start with. So that is given by this main program. This main program is the program from where the execution will start. These modules are reusable entities in your program. You can use this module by just passing in parameters. Assume if module 1 is going to compute factorial of a number, if you pass in n, it can compute n factorial. If you can pass in r, it can compute r factorial. If you pass n minus r, it can compute n minus r factorial. So, you don't need to write the code again and again, which insists on reusability. And hence came the use of modular programming. So when this modular programming comes in, the necessity of storing the branching also is required. What does it mean? For example, if I am calling C is equal to A of a function A from main program, when this particular instruction gets executed, the control has to be given back to the function which is defined for A. Once this execution gets over, the control has to be given back to the same statement and the return value has to be stored down to C. So, at any point of time, the statement number from which this branch happens has to be understood so that it can return back. This memory element is not associated with finite automata and hence a memory structure is needed. And you always know that the control has to be passed back. For example, if I am calling another function b of here and you have a b of function, so when this b gets over, it has to come back. So the control has to be transferred to the recently called component and hence the concept of stack is being used. Okay, so the stacks concept is that when you try to push an element, only the topmost element is accessible, right? And hence this modular programming is in need of a memory element that is accessible only using this last in first out strategy. That's where we end up with the requirement of push down automata. So what's needed now? The finite automata, which is the basic control structure, along with one data structure for memory. Okay, so together we call it as a push down automata. So, how this memory is being organized? That's the next question. Memory means sequence of locations. You will have always sequence of locations which we call it as memory. What kind of accessing are you going to enforce on this is the next question to be understood. Here, as the name implies, push is the operation of stack, and hence stack is what is going to be used. So assume this is the stack. Always the bottom has to be indicated. In normal programming, the bottom will be indicated with the address of it, but in general we say Z0 is the bottom stack marker. If I push an element A, it will be A will be on the top now. If I push another element A, again this A will be on the top. In reverse, if I want to pop it out, then the case is different. So the topmost A will go off and you will be ended up with this thing. Again, if I pop out, the topmost element will go off and we will end up with the bottom stack marker. So that's the memory configuration that's available in pushdown automata. With that understanding, let's formally define what pushdown automata is. As we have seen, it's nothing but a finite automata, and hence all the components of finite automata to be included. Q, sigma, delta, Q naught and then F plus stack. So what is stack? Z0 is the bottom stack marker, and we have included one more entity called tau. Tau is nothing but the list of all symbols that you are permitted to be stored on the stack. Sigma is nothing but the set of input symbols that can come on the input stream. Whatever set of symbols you are permitting to get stored on the stack becomes tau. So that's defined here. Finite set of states, non-empty set sigma, non-empty set of stack symbols tau, start state, final states, the transition function and the bottom stack marker. Here the transition function takes a different configuration. It is Q cross sigma. So it is like from a state, when you apply an input symbol, if X is on the top, what is the destination state to be reached and what should be the new stack top? Q and P are the states, X and Y are the stack symbols. X is the top of the stack before transition, Y is the top of the stack after transition. A is your input symbol. How to represent this pushdown automata? Like finite automata, again this will be represented with transition diagram and transition table. So I have drawn a simple transition diagram. You can see here it's just a finite automata with the change in representation on the symbols written over the edges. Here the pattern is like, first comes your input symbol. The part before slash represents the symbol top of this stack before transition. The part after the slash represents the top of the stack after transition. So that is the structure. And coming to transition table, okay, again the rows represent your states and the columns represents your input symbol. Actually here along with the input symbol we do have the destination state and then the top before transition and after transition. Here for example, if Q0 is your start state, okay, Q0 is the start state, when A is my input, okay, there are two possibilities. If Z0 is on the top of the stack before transition, okay, so what is after transition? The top of the stack will be A Z0. Always the string has to be read from right to left. So A Z0 will be stored onto the stack like this, Z0 over which A will be there. And then here A gives AA. So A is before transition, AA is after transition. Likewise, this is being filled and hence this is the top of the stack before transition and this is top of the stack after transition. Let us see one simple example. We are going to design a pushdown automata to accept strings of the language L is equal to A power and B power and such that n greater than 0. This is the language we have initially used to prove that there are certain languages that could not be understood using finite automata. The language I have written, when n is equal to 1 will have AB, when n is equal to 2, 2A, 2B, n is equal to 3, 3A, 3B. So the length of the first string is 2, and hence what is the minimum number of states you will have? It is 3. So in order to memorize how many number of A's are being crossed till now, we are in need of a stack. Okay, let us first draw the stack configuration and you try to recollect the kids example. So let me take one simple word, triple A, triple B as the example, right? So initially the stack will have only Z0, the bottom stack marker. When the first A comes in, right, so we need to push. So the concept is that A has to be pushed onto the stack, meaning that it has to be memorized. Then when the second A comes, it has to be pushed onto the stack. So you will have 2 A's. Then when the third A comes, again it needs to be pushed onto the stack. Then if you see B on your input, the concept is to pop out. So what to pop out? This A, and hence 2 A's will remain. Similarly, when the B comes, then 1 A will remain. When last B comes, all A's will be popped out and will be left out with Z0. So when stack is empty, we say the word is accepted. Right? Now, what is pushing, what is popping, to be clearly understood. Here, the concept of push is replacement of top. Right? Now, Z0 is pointed to by top marker. When A comes on your input, this Z0. So, what to be replaced with this Z0 has to be written. So, initially Z0 is there. It needs to be replaced by A Z0. So, that's why A Z0. Always you have to read like this from right side to left side. Okay. The leftmost symbol will appear on the top. Then comes the second A. Now, what is on the top? It is this A. Okay. Z0 is not on the top. Only A is on the top. This A has to be replaced by 2 A's. Right? We need to retain this A. Along with that, we need to push one more A, which means actually this A has to be replaced by 2 A's. So, when A is on the top, you have to replace it with 2 A's. Similarly, if you see the third one, this is on the top. And this A to be replaced by 2 A's. So, when A is on the top, again 2 A's to be replaced. Now that B comes on your input, the concept is you have to remove this. So, this has to be taken out and hence A has to be replaced by epsilon. Again, A has to be replaced by epsilon. Third is also A has to be removed by epsilon. So, when your input symbol is epsilon and when the stack contains Z0, we say the word has been accepted or else rejected. Now, let us draw the pushdown automata for this. As we already have seen, Q0, Q1, Q2 will be there, minimal, right? Now, initially, we are expecting A on the input string because L is equal to A power n, B power n such that n greater than 0, not equal to 0. So, the minimal length string is AB. So, when A is on my input, what is on the bottom of the stack? It is Z0. So, it needs to be replaced by A Z0. Okay. So, initially Z0 will be there. When the first A comes, it will be replaced by Z0 A, which means you are pushing. After that, whatever be the number of A's that comes on your input, you have to just push A. Right? So, this you can explain, this you can execute n number of times, not infinite number of times, as per the number of A's that comes on your input. So, I am going to draw one self loop. When A comes on your input, when A is on the top, so already you have pushed one A, so A will be on the top, replace it with 2 A's. Why am I replacing? Because here the concept of pushing is replacement. Now all pushing has been done. If you have the word like AABB, now you will have this on your stack. Now then B comes on your input. The minimal length string is AB, so B needs to come on the input, right? Now when B comes on your input, then you can replace A by epsilon to equate. Okay, just you two have to pop out. This how many times you need to continue as long as you see number of B's on your input. Finally, what is expected on your input? It is epsilon. Okay, because all the symbols have been crossed and the stack should have Z0. Just move to the final state. Okay, that's all. Your deterministic PDA is drawn. Fine. We'll see more examples in the coming sessions.